This is the most leaked budget I have ever known. In this video, we're going to deep dive into two of the most significant leaks about this budget and exactly what they mean for property investors like you. Hi, my name is Ranjan Bhattacharya. I've been investing in property for 30 years, and you may have already seen my budget predictions video, which we put out a couple of weeks ago. I'll put a link to it here so you can watch that. But since we released that video, there have been further leaks. And as I said in the introduction, this has been one of the most leaked budgets I've ever seen. I don't know what new information they will have for us on the Wednesday budget speech itself. There are two significant leaks about the budget, which are going to affect property investors in a very good way. And in this video, I'm going to share with you exactly why and how. The first, of course, is the extension of the stamp duty holiday. It's going to be extended until the end of June. That's a further 3 months. So any sales up to £500,000 will mean that you don't pay stamp duty. Now that's if you're an owner-occupier buyer. Of course, if you're an investor or you're buying in a limited company, you will still have to pay the 3% surcharge. So that's very good news if you're a seller of properties, and if you're buying properties, then there's just that little bit less pressure to get completion done in time by 31st of March. But the other thing that's going to be absolutely massive is this whole thing about 95% mortgages. In other words, buyers can buy property with just 5% deposit. So last year, of course, Boris said that he wanted to turn generation rent into generation buy.
And the disgraceful truth is that levels of owner occupation for the under 40s have plummeted. It is still true that the overwhelming instinct is to buy. And many of them simply can't, not because they can't afford the mortgage, but because they can't afford the deposit.
Boris Johnson, of course, heavily influenced by Margaret Thatcher, turned a generation of home renters into home buyers, and many of them subsequently turned into Tory voters. Now Boris Johnson is equally inspired to do the same thing with today's generation rent. The problem, as Boris Johnson sees it, is that home buyers do not necessarily have the deposit. It's quite hard to save up the deposit. So what they're coming up with is a 95% mortgage scheme. Now that means, of course, the lender is going to pretty much lend what they're going to lend. They're going to lend about 75%. And the rest of the amount of the loan is going to be lent by the lender, but guaranteed by a state scheme. So that means the borrower doesn't have to put up that much deposit in order to buy a place. Now, if the leaks are true, this 95% mortgage is going to be available for people under the age of 40 who are buying their first home, and also for property purchases under £600,000. Now, what does this mean for the property investor, the property developer? Well, what it means is that flipping comes back into play as a game-on strategy for the moment. And flipping is a variation of the BRRR strategy, when I put a link to that video here. The only difference being is you buy well, you refurbish, but instead of renting and refinancing, you flip, you sell it on. So here's why flipping is such a great strategy right now. Because you see, many first-time buyers don't have the deposit. You know, the most they can come up with is 5%. And the government scheme will help them out. But here's the thing, if they don't have the deposit, they probably don't have the amount of money in the bank to buy a dilapidated or old and shabby property and refurbish it either. So that's where you guys can come in as property investors and developers. You buy unloved, unmodernized, shabby properties. You buy them from motivated sellers. You refurbish them to modern standards. You get an uplift in value, and you sell them to a first-time buyer who is benefiting from a 5% deposit mortgage. And if you can get all that done before June the 31st, your buyer won't even have to pay any stamp duty as well. Now, there are going to be lots of people in the comments moaning, so if you're going to have a moan, do so in the comments below, or if you agree with what I'm saying, also do so in the comments below. But there'll be a lot of people moaning about the effect this 5% deposit mortgage will have on the property market. And I guess whether you agree with it or don't agree with it largely depends on which side of the fence you're sitting on, whether you're a buyer or a seller. But I don't really want to have that debate. If it's coming, it's coming. The issue is, how can you make the best of that opportunity? As I always say, the rules are the rules. It's the same sun that shines on all our backs. It's how you make use of it that counts. And just to throw in my 2 pennies worth, I think it's quite a nice level playing field, because it's been wrong in the past. We've had 5% mortgages, but that's been under the government's Help to Buy scheme. And that has only been applicable to new build properties. So large developers, even smaller developers, could set themselves up so that they would build or convert a block of flats and sell them on under the government's Help to Buy scheme. But that meant that as a buyer, you had limited choice, because if you wanted to put down 5% deposit, you couldn't go for a second-hand property. You had to go for a new build property. In my mind, this actually equals out the playing field, makes it level. It means that buyers of properties, first-time buyers, have the choice. They can either go for a refurbished second-hand property with a little bit of character, or a new build flat, or what have you. The choice is up to them. Now tell me what you think in the comments below. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts. Now, I believe this budget is going to be full of good news, because more than anything, they are going to want entrepreneurs to generate economic activity to get us out of the worst recession in 300 years. And my prediction is this budget is going to be about growth. So this is going to be a very important budget for property investors, and we are going to give you our first update on what it means for you guys as property investors and developers within hours of Rishi Sunak's speech. So make sure, if you haven't already done so, subscribe and hit that bell icon, and we'll notify you as soon as that video is uploaded. And of course, if you're watching this video after March the 3rd, 2021, well, don't watch this one. You want to watch this video, because this one tells you exactly what the budget has meant for property investors. Happy investing, guys, and see you in the next video. Boris Johnson is, of course, heavily influenced by Margaret Thatcher, who famously in the 1980s turned a generation of renters into home buyers and also voters. Sorry. Tory voters. They were already voters if they were renters. That's a stupid thing to say. I think that law came in 1820 something rather, where renters could also vote. So that's a grave historical inaccuracy. Where was I?